So today's lesson is a review of what we've been doing the last week and then into today, or into yesterday. So I'm going to go through the first example of each section so you have a model to follow as you go through the review. And then tomorrow you'll have what's a quiz on this. It will just be counted for completion, but I will grade it so you know how you did on the content. But you will get a point. Your points will be based on the completion of the quiz. So use this example I do as a model to do the rest, and then use this review as your model to do the quiz tomorrow. So the first section is reviewing back how do we find the value of C. So if you remember correct from last week, to find the value of C, we do 1/2 times the value of B, which in this case would be -9, and then we take that number and square it, which is 81. So C is 81. Okay, so it's half of B. Get the value, square it. So step 1, step 2, and then step 3 was to put it in its place. For this, they only ask you to find C. You don't have to write it out. So that's done at that point. For number 7, so this section here, the following are perfect square trinomials. Factor them using the perfect square trinomial method, then solve. So to do the perfect square trinomial, this is a perfect square. So we're going to factor this. So it's x plus, and then remember you take half of the value, so plus 2, or sorry, square root of this. Square root of the first term, sine of the middle term, square root of the last term, squared equals 16. And then we're going to move the 16 to the same side, equals 0, and we're going to factor a difference of squares. So we take the square root of this, we get x plus 2, and then, oops, sorry, that's supposed to be parentheses, x plus 2. No square root, I apologize. And then we do a plus and a minus, and we take the square root of this, which is 4. And then we take each of these, x plus 2 plus 4 equals 0, and x plus 2 minus 4 equals 0, and we solve. X plus 6 equals 0, x is -6, and then x minus 2 equals 0, so x is 2. So that's what you're going to do on this one. This is a perfect square trinomial, so you're going to go right to factoring it, and then do your difference of squares. So on the next page, number 9, factor using the completing the square. So on these ones, this is when we had to move the C term to the other side. So we have x squared minus 4x plus blank equals -1 plus blank. And then we did 1/2 times -4 is -2. And then we squared that and we get 4. And we put 4 on each blank. And then we factor this. So we take the square root and we get x. Sine of the middle minus square root of 4 is 2 squared equals 3. And then we took this and we moved it to the same side. So x minus 2 squared minus 3 equals 0. And if we factor that, we're going to get x minus 2 minus the square root of 3. And then x minus 2 plus the square root of 3. And if we set those equal to 0, we get x equals 2 plus root 3. And x equals 2 minus root 3. So those are the two answers. So that's what you're going to do on each of these. Move the term to the other side. On number 12, it's already moved. Put your plus blank on both sides. Fill in and figure out what goes on the blank, and then factor. The next section is the quadratic formula, which we learned last Thursday and into Friday. So all the steps are here. We're going to look at number 13 and use the quadratic formula. So to use a quadratic formula, remember you have to put it in standard form. Once it's equal to 0, you're going to identify what A, B, and C are. And then we're going to plug in. So it's negative, we'll put it up here, x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So it's -5 plus or minus the square root of -5 squared minus 4 times 1 times -36 all over 2 times 1. So then we're going to simplify negative and negative makes a +5. -5 squared is 25. A negative minus, and then we're going to multiply these together. 4 times 36 is 144. And it's negative because it's -36. So then we put this over 2. And then we get 5 plus or minus the square root. If I make the two negatives into a plus, it's 169 over 2. The square root of 169 is going to go up. It's 5 plus or minus 13 over 2. If I do 5 plus 13, I get 18 over 2, which is 9. And 5 minus 13 is negative 8 over 2, which is negative 4. So those are my answers. So that's the quadratic formula. Oh, sorry, that was off the page. So use the quadratic formula to solve these ones. Again, make sure you move the number to the same side so you can find the values, put it in standard form, and then solve. And the last section is what we did on the lesson on Monday, which is a discriminant. All the rules are here. So on the back side, it says find the discriminant, state how many solutions you will have. So again, we have to identify A, B, and C. And then we have B squared minus 4 times A times C. So negative 2 squared is 4. And then minus, if I multiply this, I get negative 28. If I then simplify, I'm going to get 4 plus 28, which is 32. And 32 is a positive number, so it has 2 real. And that's my answer, 32, 2 real. Okay, and then the last problem is two people solving the same problem, and you're checking to see who did it correctly. So one is right, one is wrong. You got to decide which one is right and which one is wrong. Or they could both be, as it actually says, that they could both be correct, which wouldn't make sense because they would have the same answer. One is correct, or it could be neither of them are correct. So check their work carefully and figure that out. So if you want to come noontime, actually 1 o'clock, I'll go over this with you.